I'm Drew Rohlman, 2024 wide receiver from Chatfield High School, going to Black Hills State University, and you're listening to Playmakers Corner.
Hey everybody, it is your host for this episode, Kodey Stoffer, and we are continuing our series here in 2024 with the class of 2024 top players by position. For those who aren't familiar, it is our longest running kind of episode series here at Playmakers Corner, where we take a look at the top 5 players at every position. Well, we take a look more likely at 10 to 20 players at each position here in the Box State. We take a look at them through our evaluation system, and then we, rank them cumulatively between myself and Coach V, and then we release an episode. And so one of the members of that series is joining me today. That was from episode 324, so give that a listen. But if you'd like to introduce yourself, where you're from, what position you play, and where you played high school ball, feel free to kick it off.
Yeah, so I'm Drew Rohlman from Littleton, Colorado. I played at Chatfield High School, 2024 wide receiver, tight end, a little bit of both.
Yeah, and that's kind of always been the case with you, man. You've kind of lined up and done whatever this team really needed of you. And so that was obviously something that we took into consideration while grading you. And we went back and forth a little bit because we do have a top 5 tight ends list. We were like, what would we recruit him as? And so after seeing you live in the Fairview playoff game, that would be your junior year, I want to say. That was, that opening round where the lights went out, which was crazy. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk more about past experiences and whatnot. That's when I think in my mind, I was like, I think that I'd probably recruit him as a receiver a little bit. But it doesn't mean that you can't end up repping in at both. And we'll talk about your skill set as well here in just a minute. But before we do that, we kind of like to level the playing field a little bit between the athletes and the listeners a little bit and just talk about something that everybody, regardless of sport experience, can kind of attest to. And that is being a fan. So we want to know here at the pod, what is your favorite sport viewing experience, whether that be a live game that you attended, whether that be a game that you watched on television that is very memorable or sentimental to you. And this could be any level. This could be, a high school game that you saw as a young kid. This could be a college game, a professional game. And it doesn't even have to be football if there's more memorable stuff. But kind of take it away.
Okay, so I've lived in Colorado my whole life, diehard Broncos fan, diehard Nuggets fan. I can tell you Super Bowl 50 was special. Just watching Von Miller just absolutely eat up the Carolina Panthers was amazing. I loved that, every moment of that. And honestly, one of the more recent ones is during the Nuggets championship run. I caught one of the Lakers games at home. Nuggets swept them because they're the better team, of course. But the atmosphere at that game was unlike anything I've ever seen before, heard before. It was so loud. It was unbelievable. So, those are 2 of my favorites by far.
I am also a Colorado born and raised guy, so you love to hear it. I'm glad that, you stuck to it. Because there were some years where it was a little questionable for both those franchises, but man, the reward was sweet. So it's always good to get that dub. And I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. I mean, Super Bowl 50. I remember I was at my uncle's house watching that game, and Vaughn really just took over. Watching TJ Ward try and stay on his feet, I always thought was funny because we were winning. I was like, all right, at least we don't need the points, TJ. And then that Nuggets game. That's sick that you got to go to a home game, because I went to one of the watch parties there, and it was also electric for one of the away games. And I mean, Nuggets Nation, they were riding last postseason, and, for us to have to wait that long. And I remember always losing to the Lakers. It felt like, especially during the Melo years. So to not only beat the Lakers, but to sweep them on the road to the finals, that's fine dining right there.
Oh yeah, it was special. I loved every second of that run. Tuned into every single game, watched everything I could. So yeah, it was super sweet to finally win a championship.
Yeah, no, that run was so fun and little kind of off topic a little bit, but during that run, I found that anytime, so I work at a rec center, anytime I was wearing a work shirt, the Nuggets won. But if I actually wore a Nuggets shirt, they lost. And this went from round one against the T-Wolves all the way to the NBA Finals. So, anytime the Nuggets lost, I was wearing Nuggets gear. So I take those losses on me that we didn't get it, a little bit faster. But that was a little frustrating. Like even when the Nuggets won and I was at McGregor Square or whatever it was, I was wearing a work shirt because the superstition was so real. So,
Yeah, whatever
um,
works.
yeah, right. And speaking of things and finding things that work here, we want to kind of know, talking your game here. Obviously, you've watched professional sports. I'm assuming that you've seen some other sports and whatnot. Who, whether it be an individual or a handful of athletes, are some guys that you've modeled your game after?
Um, well, being a Broncos fan, I would say Cortland Sutton. He's a guy I really look up to, try to play like. I mean, he's a bigger body receiver. He has great hands. He can run routes. He can do just about everything. I know he's a really good red zone threat, and I think that's kind of how I like view my game a little bit, is just like finding space in the end zone. And he doesn't always put up big yards, but I think that it's not like fully reflective of like how good he is. And I think somehow like sometimes that's how my stats look. Like I only put up around 700 yards, but I think that it's not really fully reflective of who I am as a receiver. So I think Cortland Sutton's a guy that I try to model my game after.
Yeah, your impact definitely goes way beyond the stat sheet. That was one of the first things that I noticed, honestly, when putting that all together and taking a look at your film. And you're a guy that we've seen live a few times over the years, and you have some iconic moments. And we kind of want to know, you. It feels like you have a handful to choose from. I have a small guess at what number one might be, but if you have a favorite memory as a player or athlete, or a few that you want to share, we kind of want to hear some of these stories. We're sitting around the campfire here.
Yeah, so obviously there's a number one. Um, Sophomore year state championship. We were a run heavy team. We never threw the ball, so it was like my one opportunity, my one chance, and I was nervous because I knew like the play call going in. I was like, they're gonna throw me this ball right now, and I was just a little sophomore on a senior heavy team. Like we had just me and Jake, and Goose played a little bit that year, but Ben played a little bit, Avery played a little bit, but it was a ton of seniors, and I was shaking, lining up in my stance, and I was just so happy I caught that pass. And yeah, it was just like it was the coolest moment of my life. I'll say it again. I don't know if anything will ever top that, but just being in the Broncos stadium and everything last second. So that's probably my favorite moment, but I have a couple of others. Um, my sophomore year, my first ever touchdown in a varsity game, it was Fountain Fort Carson. And I think it was a tie game. It was like my third ever varsity game. And it was Jake. I think Jake's thrown me all of my touchdowns in my career. So it was Jake. He went in to throw because we were again a run heavy team. It was like a tie game in the fourth quarter, and he hit me on a little seam route, and I almost dropped it, but I somehow came up with it and just ran for a touchdown. So that was really cool. Just me and Jake's first touchdown of many to come. Um, I think another one, maybe not even just an individual play, but just the Arapahoe game this year. As a 14 seed, no one picked us to win that game. No one,
Guilty as charged.
yeah. There's no one who expected us to go in there and beat Arapahoe, the 3 seed. So I think it was like a locker room thing. We knew that we were a good team, and I feel like the rest of the world didn't really pick up on that until later. But we all knew going in that we were going to go and win that game, and it felt so good to do that and just prove everyone wrong. I think this Chatfield team, the past 3-4 years, has built like a whole like reputation on just proving everyone wrong. And I think that's what we're best at, is just playing with a chip on our shoulder. So those are my top 3, honestly.
And those are some good ones. And I remember being in the press box for that game winner. I mean, that final drive that y'all called in that state championship game was one of the most bizarre final drive play callings I've ever seen, because you had that crazy like volleyball set hook and ladder before that between Narva and Lowe, and that was just so wild. And then, I mean, that catch that you made, that was a contested catch, man. And I mean, once you make a play like that on the biggest stage of high school football, I mean, I feel like the rest of it's just gotta kind of be easier from there. I mean, you're obviously going to improve your game, but it's like, how are you supposed to get like nerves after you've done that? I mean, that's as Joe Cool as it gets.
Yeah. So I mean, well, talking about that hook and lateral play, we repped it in practice and we did not complete it one time. And so when
No,
all
you're
that
joking.
no, so we struggled every single time in practice we tried to rep it. And he pulled it out in the final drive of the biggest game of our lives. And the fact that it worked then was unreal.
Oh, Brett, you crazy. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I was shocked that and it looked beautiful in the game. Like I don't know where that came from, but it was unreal. And then yeah, so the final play, just trusting me and Jake in that moment, of all the athletes we had on that team, because we had a lot. We had Mason, Jake Marshall, Brock Narva. Like those guys are some dogs. And the fact that they put the ball in me and Jake Jones's hand last play of the game was pretty unreal.
But hey, maybe they knew something that even you guys didn't know at that time, right?
Yeah, so that was like the start of everything. I always joke around with the guys because they'd come up to me before game and be like, dude, I'm super nervous. I was like, just don't get nervous. Like, it's not that bad. Could be a bigger game, bigger situation. Like, I never really got nervous after that.
Yeah, it could be a bit more pressure. Just saying, guys.
Yeah.
Just speaking from experience, I'm sure you'll be fine. That's great mentorship to have, and like I said, it's just like it's whatever after that. But and then that first touchdown has always got to be cool, and I think with that Arapahoe game, I'll admit, I'm an Arapahoe alumni, so I'll always have a little bit of bias when it comes to picking Arapahoe and stuff like that. But I feel like a lot of people kind of forget, and I mean, you don't have to comment on this if you don't want to, but we here at the pod at least felt like y'all got done pretty dirty, at least as far as like repercussions and stuff goes. I thought that they kind of punished y'all like 2 or 3 times because they didn't really decide the first few times. And so y'all were a deceptive 14 seed because, I mean, y'all really had, I want to say like 2 or 3 more wins that weren't counted or something to that extent. So, and that's something that's easy to forget heading into the postseason. And obviously the Jeffco League was cutthroat this year. I mean, 3 of the Final 4 teams, Jeffco teams. And so I think that taking the league, I feel like taking the league to the seriousness that it was, and then also reading into context, what y'all were as a 14 seed that probably should have been a top 10 seed. I think that once you like start piecing those things together a little bit, and the fact that you guys persevered and proved people wrong, I mean, I'll admit it, we were wrong about y'all your sophomore year when y'all went to state and everything like that, because y'all got that revenge win against Dakota Ridge in those playoffs, and that game was crazy. Y'all did not play any games that were like sane, by the way. Y'all's games were always such a roller coaster that season. I'd even say your senior season too. Y'all had some crazy, just like hold on to your seats and hold on to your hats kind of games, a handful of the time, which I mean is what makes Chatfield football exciting and what made you guys so special to watch. And, I'm gonna break this up a little bit out of order and just start talking about the season and just kind of know what was kind of your reaction to some season previews and kind of off season, like what the expectations were for you guys. Everyone definitely expected you to take a step forward because you had a lot of juniors coming back for that senior year. I'd say that this year you guys not entirely senior heavy, but a good handful of seniors. Well, senior heavy in general, and then, some other guys that were underclassmen filling in here and there. But pretty strong senior class, and, there were expectations for y'all to do good and make the postseason. How did that kind of impact your prep in the offseason?
So obviously we had a ton of guys coming back. We had a lot of talent on this team. But we still kind of felt disrespected preseason. We're like, because people were putting us, we saw their rankings like top 15, top 10, but we felt like we were a top 2, top 3 team. And we felt a little bit disrespected, but going into the year, it was like the brothership, or like the brotherhood, and like just, it was something like I've never seen before from a team. Like every single person in our locker room wanted to win state, and that was what was expected of us. That's what we planned to do. Like there was, like, losing was not an option on this team. Like going into the year, we knew what we wanted, and we knew that we were going to go through whatever it took to get it done. And I think that was something that was really special about this team, is just the bond that we had. We were tight from the very beginning, just with summer workouts, and like we heard all the noise, and like we just wanted to go out and prove that we were that team and we were that good. And I think we did that. I know it came to a tough end against Columbine, but Columbine's a really good team. I have my opinions on their offense as a receiver, but
Oh, you already know how we feel.
yeah. So I know, but it got the job done, and they're a really good team. They went on to win state. They didn't lose a game, so obviously they were a juggernaut this year. But yeah, I just think we don't get as far as we do without the brotherhood that we built in the off season, and the brotherhood that we built through all the adversity we faced from our freshman year up. Because there was not a year at Chatfield where there wasn't adversity being faced from this 2024 class. So I think just that was like the foundation, and it just built on and on and on until we were like a tight knit unit of guys. So I think that really showed on the field.
Absolutely. I mean, just how long y'all played together, at least in high school ball, and all the stuff that y'all did in the off season, and just being able to bond year round, I mean, just goes such a long way in producing a successful football team. And I mean, like you said, this year was definitely a success. And so I just want to kind of hear from your perspective, anything that you want to talk about, the good, the bad, and if there's anything funny in there as well throughout the season. We'd like to kind of hear what your thoughts. It doesn't have to be week by week. It could just be like any week that you think is significant. But just kind of take us through the Chargers season from inside the locker room.
Yeah, so I think our first real game that tested us was that first Cherokee Trail game. We know that we didn't play very good that game. We played one of our worst games of the season, and we still won. But it was bad as a unit. It was a bad game. And we knew that we were better than that. So that was a real test. We didn't want to play a game like that for the rest of the year. And I don't think we really did. I think we bounced back after that. But then the Creek game showed us that we had a lot of work to do, I think. And the guys knew that. Creek really, the final score was a little bit closer than the game actually was. They came into our house. There was a lot of hype in that game. I think there were some rumors that like Destroying the YouTuber was coming, so it was just super hyped up. We were both 2-0 at the time, so it just showed us that we had a lot of work to do. And it wasn't like a defeated loss, but I think it even brought us closer. Just showed us that like when we like to get where we want to be, we need to keep working and keep growing, and like each individual player needs to keep improving. And I think we did that throughout the year. And then there was the whole situation around week 5 or 6. I know we had a day where we just got a text from coach, and it was like, after school, we're not going to practice today. Just meet us in the library. And we had a big meeting about what Chassa was deciding to do. They decided to take away our wins against Taylorsville and Cherokee Trail. So those became losses, and we were 3-3, I think. Now we were 5-1, I believe, and then we got put to 3-3. And I think after something like that happens, your team can go one of two directions. I think you can like decide, hey, it's over. Like there's nothing we can do about it. Like we got cheated. And just like decide to quit and throw in the towel. But I think what our team did is really just bonded together, and it just brought us even closer, and it brought just like a fire to us almost, that we weren't going to take this, and we were going to go out every game and prove that we're not done, that our season is still in our hands and we can still do it even though they took away some of our wins. And I don't know if this is my place to speak on it, but I think that the punishment they gave Micah was absolutely like ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, the kid did everything right. He came up here. He decided, hey, I'm in this area. I'm going to go to Chatfield and not Columbine because I'm a receiver. I want to catch the ball. And the fact that he just knew one of the coaches on our staff got him suspended for the playoffs for the like 3 or so games of our season. And now the kid's struggling to find a college team, which is just really unfortunate because he's a D1 caliber receiver. And the fact that he's struggling to find a team is just, I think it's unfair to the kid who did nothing wrong. If anything, punish the admin at Chatfield, punish someone else. But he really didn't do anything to deserve that, and now he's struggling. And I just think that's dumb, in my opinion. So I guess another big game in our season was the game against Arvada West, where they scheduled us for their homecoming game. And this was our first game without Micah, and it was kind of a crap show going to the game. We were just now learning, like 10 minutes before we get on the bus, that he's not going to be able to play. And like we're just scrambling to get ready for this game, and people are like freaking out sort of. And then we went out and we beat them 42-0. So I just think that showed the heart that we had in this team. Like learning that news like 10 minutes before getting on the bus to go to the game, just like our whole game plan is mixed up now. Like everything is like turned on its head, and our team just came out and whooped them in their homecoming game. And that was just something I was really proud of as a senior, as a captain. Like it just kind of showed our culture and who we were, and like the bond that we had, that we were going to go out there and play for those guys that couldn't be here, couldn't be there. So then after that game, so the A-West game was a huge part of our season. Then the Ralston Valley and Columbine games at the end of league, they were big, just because Ralston Valley, we 100% could have won that game if it wasn't for 1 to 2 plays. Like I know early in the game, I think it was Dagan like swatted a ball and it popped in the air and they caught it and took it like 80 yards for a touchdown. Just something like some unfortunate stuff like that. But that game showed us that we were ready to compete against the best. Like we knew that Ralston Valley's a tough team. They made a Final Four run, and we were in that game from start to finish. And Columbine, same thing. We had a couple of bad plays, but other than that, we were competing in that game too. And we knew, like, going into the playoffs, hey, like, we have the chance to do something special against these top teams. And we were hungry for it. So then first week of playoffs, we didn't get a bye because we were, like, cheated a little bit, but wasn't going to stop us. We went out and played the same Cherokee Trail team that we only beat by 3 points. And I think the final score was like 42-7. We went out and absolutely just handled business. And I think that's when it kind of, like, started clicking that, hey, like, we're doing this. Like, no one can stop us now. We're rolling. So then next week was Arapahoe. Everyone picked against us. No one had us winning. But we came out there and we had a tough first half, really. It was, I think, 13-0 going into the locker room. And just we weren't done yet. We weren't defeated. We weren't hanging our heads. So we come out and Jake Jones in this second half plays the most unreal football game I've ever seen. He's making Patrick Mahomes, like, falling over throws, and he really just put us on his back. And the game goes to overtime, 28-28, I believe. Or it might have been 21-21, but it goes into overtime. And Jake is hobbling. He's like injured, like playing through it. And the kid is just like, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. He's just making plays, running, throwing, every possible way. And we call this, like, QB keeper. We get in the end zone in the first drive of overtime, and then our defense goes out there, and Arapahoe gets about on their one yard line, and our defense just has the most unreal goal line stand ever, 4 plays in a row. And I remember being on the sideline, like we just, like, I can't even explain it. The feeling was when I saw them, like, stuff that run in the backfield on 4th down, everyone just storms the field, and it was genuinely one of the coolest feelings and just coolest things to be a part of as a member of this team. And I remember just the goosebumps I had when they made that stop, and just the fact that we actually did it, that no one expected us to. We actually did it. We came through. We overcame everything that they threw at us, and we actually did it. We beat the 3rd team in the state. So that was a really, really cool moment for us. And then the Grandview game, once again, just Jake just put the team on his back, made a ton of plays. And we were like, yeah, we're going to go as far as he takes us. Because he was the guy that game. I think he had 3 rushing touchdowns, something like that, and like 3 throwing or something, some absurd stat line like that, like no interceptions. It was just unreal. Just seeing him grow and develop from that little sophomore into who he became is just amazing. He, in my opinion, is a top quarterback in the state. So just seeing him develop was great. I mean, I love the kid to death. Me and him have had an unreal connection for the past 3 years. So I think he's thrown me every single touchdown that I've caught as a high school football player. So just seeing him develop into taking that next step and just leading this team was amazing. I was so proud of just the player he became and the man he became. So that's just, like, speaks volumes on how this team did what it did. But then, yeah, we beat Grandview, and then we headed back to Jeffco Stadium to play Columbine again. And obviously that game wasn't the outcome that we expected, but I think just as a team, it was a pretty successful season. Just knowing everything we've been through, and just for it to end in the semifinals as a 14 seed, I just think that it was pretty successful all around.
I would definitely call this season a success as well. And, you know, I appreciate you sharing kind of the inside and how crazy it was. And I mean, we're always pro player here at the pod, and we've expressed our what's the word I'm looking for? I'll say disagreements with CHASA punishments in regards to athletes. There was kind of a similar-ish situation with Dom Nichols the first time we played. He was a cornerback / running back at Pomona who once again offers suffered, and I mean it just made it really, really hard. And Micah, he's somebody who Simon was pretty familiar with, Coach V, that is, because of where he lived, and Simon's familiar with that area. And when you have an opportunity to move out of that area, it's kind of a good thing, is basically what Simon let us know, at least about the part of the Springs where Micah's former high school was. So it's tough, and there were other suspensions handed out as well before that, like, kind of secondary decision. So we thought it was pretty weird and a little inconsistent, but it's just one of those things where we obviously hope that when Micah gets that chance, because somebody's got to take a chance on him, that he just makes the most of it and he does his thing and he plays his game. So we definitely feel that, but it's good that you guys took that as a motivator. I was actually at that Arvada West game. It was one of the live games that I attended. I kind of wanted to see, Arvada West is a bit on the younger side, so I kind of wanted to see what their young core had. And I mean, y'all just kind of had your way with them in their stadium on their homecoming. And yeah, no, that was a fun game to watch. You had a great game in that too. That was another Drew Rohlman top 5 argument kind of came there. Yeah. And you had some sweet routes and some great catches that game where the ball just stuck to your hands. So those were fun to watch. And I think that you talked a lot about kind of the good, the bad, and what separated you guys from other teams in the state. And I guess speaking of kind of some games that you had and whatnot, I kind of want to jump back a little bit and ask, what was kind of your reaction to our evaluation of your game and being, oddly enough, tied, which barely happens when 2 of us grade. We're actually trying to get a third guy in here to grade so that basically never happens again, but being tied as the number 4 receiver here in the state of Colorado.
Yeah, so I think just my name being up there with those guys is super special, because those guys are like heck of a talent, all of them. So that just speaks volumes to, I think, how my game has grown. I know you talked a little bit about how my route running and footwork improved, but if you go and look at my junior year film, you'll actually notice that I don't have a lot of footwork, a lot of route running in there. And I just kind of wanted to speak on that a little bit, because I would always just use my bigger size, bigger frame, bigger body to just go up and make plays that year. And it worked for me a little bit, but I went to a camp. I'm not going to say whose camp, because it was some harsh words from their coaches, but I went to a camp this summer, and they told me that to be successful as a college football player, and like looked at me and was like, you're not going to be able to do what you're doing right now and just use your size. And I took that feedback and I said, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. So I worked all summer, worked on my feet, worked on my route running. And then I went into the season and tried to put as much of that as possible on my film. So just to prove that coach wrong. And I think I did a pretty good job of that. I mean, I think my route running and my separation is something that improved so much from when I was a sophomore. And just looking at that part of my game, I think I do credit that coach for being honest with me, giving me that feedback. And I took it and I just went with it. And I said, I'm going to try to run the best routes of any recruit you're ever going to see. So I think that just speaks a little bit about who I am. Like, I love hearing criticism, but I'm going to use it to prove you wrong, basically. And I think I did a good job of that. I guess my film really shows, but like, you can take my word for it, but my film is really the ultimate factor and decider. But yeah, I think that's just something I wanted to speak on a little bit.
And we definitely wanted to know what that motivation was. So it's one of those, and I guess you could say I took it personally, one of those moments.
Yeah, a little
And
bit.
so that just makes it all the more fun. And yeah, no, it was fun to watch your film and see you definitely find like those holes in the defense and stuff like that. And I mean, still had you graded as a college prospect in literally every single category. Um, and this is something too where it's on the heels of watching a 5-star recruit as well. So all these scores, I think, is something that I like to bring up as well. Is after we watched, a 5-star guy in the nation, we came back and it's like, oh no, like we're still grading like some of your guys' upper categories are still knocking on the door of the top recruit, which I think is good for Colorado football to compare kind of that out of state kind of look here. And, that kind of brings me into matchups a little bit here because I want to say, well, you guys obviously played Taylorsville. I want to say that you played an out of state game your junior year as well. And I just kind of want to get your take as somebody who's competed against out of state talent, at least. How do you think Colorado stacks up to other states? And do you think that Colorado is overlooked compared to national talent?
Yeah, so my junior year we played Port St. Lucie from Florida, and we it was a close game the whole time. They got a little bit of a home field advantage there, but we were definitely hanging in there, and I think we were the better team. I think we just went in there and we shot ourselves in the foot. But I think that game, I don't think there's as big of a gap as people say there is. And I think that even the Taylorsville game from Utah, Taylorsville, um, it was not really close. It was 49-0 at halftime. We were up. So I think that Colorado is super underappreciated when it comes to recruiting. I think that's why the RMAC is so good in D2 is because all of those schools scoop up the Colorado kids and just like the kids in these areas, and they just like go out and use those guys and like recruit those high schoolers. So I think that's why they're such a good D2 conference is because they get these diamonds in the rough from Colorado. So I do 100% think it's underrated.
Yeah, and you kind of saw both sides of the story there, both in and out. And yeah, I definitely think that Colorado is a top 10 football state. We keep advocating for it, and we don't feel that it's number 10 either. So that's something that I think is fair to be said. And y'all got to rep against some Florida squads and showed that there's Florida squads that are very vulnerable, and they're not just this undefeatable Titan and stuff like that. And that kind of brings me into you've played with a lot of teammates, both as a guy who got reps as a sophomore on varsity and, continuing to just have more and more of a role all 3 years. And you also have done a ton of off-season work. And so I just kind of want to know who are some teammates or maybe off-season players that you've interacted with, repped against that made an impact on your game. And what was that impact?
Well, first of all, I have to shout out the best DBs in the state of Colorado, Goose and Dagan, because I'm not the receiver I am without them pushing me in one-on-ones in practice every day. Goose obviously going to San Diego, Dagan's going to CSU, so two D1 corners that I got to go against every day, day in and day out in practice and over the summer. So those guys really pushed me to be who I am. I know you guys mentioned him a little bit on the podcast, but Ben Weber too. He's playing lacrosse at the Merchant Marine Academy next year, but he was one heck of a safety for us for 3 straight years. So he's another guy, really athletic, pushed me to be my best. I think our receivers benefited a ton because we got to go against the best DBs in the state of Colorado, in my opinion. But other than that, I like to compare my game a lot, or maybe not compare my game because we have completely different play styles, but I always put myself up next to Jackson Hanson just because he's in the Jeffco league with me. And I don't really know Jackson that well. I play basketball against him twice a year, play football against him a bunch, but I wanted to beat him every single time because I would get compared to him just because we're in the same league. And every time I played against him, I just wanted to do my best, whether that's football, basketball, just because we play receiver. We're both in the same league. So that's just another guy that I always just try to beat, just like in my own head. I don't really know him that well. So Jackson, if you're watching this, I'm always going to try to beat you. But
shout out Hanson. No, he's a dog for real, and y'all are competing for those first team all league spots and
yeah,
everything beyond that too.
yeah, I remember last year they gave him the first team all conference spot over me, so that stung a little bit, and ever since then I've just like, hey, I'm gonna take it personal, even though I don't know you. So
Really on that MJ grind.
yeah, but yeah. So another thing is the Jeffco league needs to fix this. I'm gonna say, but the way they do all conference is they take 4 running backs and 3 receivers for each team. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense because most teams have 4 receivers out there and 1 running back at a time. So they have 4 first team running backs and 3 first team receivers. And I remember my junior year, they chose me as a second team, and I was so upset about that. But it is what it is. Can't do anything about it now.
That seems kind of biased towards a specific program, if I got to be honest.
I mean,
just saying.
Yeah.
But no, we'll let everyone figure it out between the lines. But speaking of, these are teammates that you got to rep against. I mean, they were all guys that we took a look at. I mean, and Myers, fantastic athlete. Goose, somebody whose film that I really enjoyed watching. I like watching him throughout the year as well. So, lots of great athletes at skill positions on the team. And, I think that you also mentioning Jackson was pretty interesting just because it is an interleague thing. But who were some of your favorite matchups, as an individual or even against a unit, of opposing teams? You don't have to know names. You could just throw out numbers if that's what you got. But any specific matchups, whether it was against an entire secondary or maybe one specific corner, safety, or defender who you enjoyed going against?
Yeah, so when we played Arapahoe, I know Charlie Eckhart. We played youth football together coming up. So going against him is always fun because he's another guy that he mentored me a lot when I was a youth football player because I played O-line for my first couple of years. And he just kind of took me under his wing in like 6th grade. So I'll always remember that. And I think going against him like as a DB when he was a safety and they put him on me was just something that I appreciate, and I wanted to beat him. I wanted to beat him every time he lined up against me. So that's a guy for sure. From the Columbine secondary, Josh Schneider. I also grew up playing football with him, so he's another guy I wanted to beat every time he lined up on me. Mason Moreno too is another guy just from the Columbine secondary. Me and him are pretty good friends, so just the fact that Columbine and Chatfield are right across the street. So that was another guy. I like to take those chances and just try to beat the best players in the state. So those are just some names for you.
And names that we've had on our radar before. It's funny is I actually, by the way, for listeners, this interview is being recorded January 21st, 2024. I actually recorded an interview with Charlie not that long ago, and his episode's coming out tomorrow. So, timing. And he's a good kid and a really fun athlete to watch for sure. So, that's got to be an exciting one to go against. And yeah, also Snyder, obviously, major accolade receiver as well, at least here in the state. And was there anyone, I mean, those are some big names, I'd say. Is there anyone who you think was a little underrated who you went against that sticks out in particular? And if not, is there anyone that you didn't get to play against in pads that you wish you got a chance to?
Well, I can say for sure, I wish I got a chance to go at Ramon Pacheco. I know he's regarded as one of the top DBs in the state, and I think maybe we played our sophomore year when we played Pine Creek twice, but I was more of an O lineman back then, so I didn't get a chance to really like line up out there and run routes. But I know he's regarded as one of those top guys in the state that I wish I got a shot at. I can't really say. Maybe in terms of underrated, I know there's a bunch of guys from Chatfield I want to say, but I don't really know names that well. There was definitely some schools that did a pretty good job on me, which shocked me a little bit. Like Pomona held me down a little bit. I ended up finishing with like 50 yards and a touchdown or something like that. But for a while, like the first 3 quarters, they had me on lockdown, and I was just a little bit shocked because I didn't expect that from them. But yeah, in terms of underrated, I'm sure there's guys out there. I just don't know names that well.
No, but it's good to shout out those units that, were deceptively challenging. And I think Pomona, obviously their season maybe didn't go the way that they really wanted it to, but their secondary, you got to find the bright spots in seasons like that. I'd say that their secondary was, one of their stronger areas as a team. So,
Yeah,
that's a good shout out. You did it. You checked that box. And then, yeah, Ramon, he's a beast, bro. He's our number 2 guy on our top 5 list. And when you watch the film, I mean, he just does everything right. And what more could you possibly ask? I think that he's going to really just blow it out of the water at Western, where he recently committed. And, we're definitely excited for him as well heading forward. It kind of like, not the same because it's a different position, obviously, but it kind of reminds me of when Jason Tommy went to Mesa, where it's just like, oh my gosh, he's going to kill those guys. Like he's already built for it. So, I think that Ramon, he's going to bulk up and he's going to show some people that he was overlooked for sure.
absolutely.
And, you said that you might want to talk about some Chatfield guys a little bit here. And so I actually want to kind of make this a 1-2 combo question here, where what are some lessons that you hope these young guys learned from this season and take with them next season? And kind of a follow up on that, who are some of those young guys that we should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, so a lesson that I hope just sticks with the program long after I'm gone is that like the brotherhood that they build will win them games. Even if they're not the most talented, because even if they're not the most like the biggest out there, the strongest, the fastest, just having that tight group of guys will win them games alone just because of how much they want it and how much we wanted it. We weren't the biggest team. We weren't the most athletic. We weren't the fastest, but we just wanted it more than everyone else. And I hope those guys know that and they pick up on that, and that hard work and just drive will take them to levels that even they don't think are possible. So that's my message to those guys. Some guys returning and coming up for Chatfield is I have a lot of names to get through, but I could say our whole defense, like our linebacker core, Caleb Espinoza, Logan Kundred, Hunter Balderson, Reed Narva, Brock Narva. They're twins, by the way. So Reed and Brock.
Okay, that's good to know. I did not know that.
Yeah. I just remember like listening to your podcast. You're like, I'm not sure if there's any relation there, but now they're twin brothers. So
It's as related as it gets, basically.
Yeah, reference. But Reed and Brock, that's like Kodey Wittig on our defensive line. Aiden Messheim, Nate Helms. Those are some names just to look for on the defensive side. Our offense is going to be super young. We lost 5 receivers, our quarterback, Landon, who was getting a ton of carries at running back. So it's going to be a lot of young guys. Our O-line guys coming back, though, like JR, our center. He was second team All-State, super overlooked. He's a really good football player. Then there's Cooper and Jesse, the big boys on the end. So they're really good. They're big. They move. They get moving for some big guys. So, and then coming up, shout out to my little brother. Today's actually his birthday.
Hey, happy birthday. Pass it along from PMC.
All right. Yeah, I will. So Ronnie, he's a little bit like me. He's more tight endy. He's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, I think. Don't tell him I said that. But yeah, he's someone to look for coming up as a tight end. Jude Smith, our fullback, he made some crazy plays out of the backfield this year, so I'm looking forward to see what he does. I love Jude, so I hope he has some success coming up. And our quarterback next year is going to be he was a freshman this year. He's a guy to watch out for sure. Cash Williams. He has a lot of raw talent, and I think that if like the guys at Chatfield are going to develop him into being a top quarterback in the state of Colorado one day. So he has big shoes to fill with Jake leaving, but he's going to be one of those guys to look out for the next 3 years. So that's just something to watch out for. Receiver wise, we're losing a lot of guys, but I know that my brother's going to play tight end. There's some other guys. James Gold is a guy to watch out for. He's maybe not the biggest name, but I think he's a star. Jaden Zeller. How could I forget Jaden Zeller? He's one of the most mature and just like sound football players I've ever seen as a freshman. Because he came in and made plays for us as a true freshman this year. And he's going to be a star. Him and Cash are a duo to watch out for sure. We always joke with them, just tell them that they shouldn't break me and Jake's Chatfield records. But I think that if anyone's going to do it, it's that duo right there, Cash and Jaden.
Hey, even if they end up chasing and breaking records, that's when you just go to the old reliable and be like, hey, where's those rings at? Like, don't talk to me until you. And then if they have the rings and the records, and it's like, all right, well, we did what we walked so you guys could run. There's always a way to find the angle with those guys. But this sounds, I recognize a handful of these names for sure. Nate Helms, that's funny because we actually watched his 8th grade season. So, because he was a junior Buffs guy, and that team, they're basically like a Colorado all-star team on the middle school level and whatnot. So we knew that he was going to get his shot sometime. And, I think that with how heavy the senior class was, that, a lot of these guys are going to get their opportunity. And it's really just crazy that how young a lot of these guys are, and the fact that they kind of poked in, you could see like glimmers and stuff of kind of what y'all had going on when you were a sophomore, where it was, guys who were kind of rotating in and out or special packages and stuff like that. And, here they are heading into like their junior and senior years, and they're going to get those chances. So I'm excited to see what they got. And, I also want to give you a shout out here. You were the guy who's done the most scouting for us so far. When we asked about guys to look out for, your list exceeds other guys. Granted, I'm going to cut some slack to my 1A and 2A guys just because those rosters aren't as big. So, I'll give those guys a little bit of slack. But, I see a potential future for you as a scout if that's where your career could ever lead, since you got all the eyes on these guys. So, I think that those are some great lessons as well, especially with a team that, these guys went through this season with y'all and kind of saw how y'all did it and saw the process and the precedent that y'all set. So I think that they're in a great position here heading forward. And, I think that a lot of the things that y'all laid down the foundation for are going to lead to future success. And kind of building off of that a little bit here, what do you think, for y'all or for this upcoming squad is unique about Chatfield and the Chatfield community and Chatfield athletics that kind of sets apart Charger football and the Charger community from other programs around the state?
So our community is great. They show up to every game, rain, snow, sun, like they're always there. They're always out supporting us. Our principal at Chatfield loves football, loves sports in general. So the fact that he backs us, Mr. Thanos, one of the best principals in the game, the fact that he backs us and supports us is great. I think Coach Roschel, he's one of the better coaches I've played for. He really builds connections with his guys, and he really like laid out the foundation like that like it's more than just football. It's a family. And when they pick up on that and they realize like this is like our little brotherhood, I think it'll be really successful for the future of Chatfield. Coach Thomas is another guy who I hope he stays with Chatfield for a while. He really brought out the best in us, and I know that he's going to develop the heck out of these young guys and get them ready. And I'm really excited to see what they can do, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's a great support staff. And, this is kind of a follow-up question that I just realized. I'd say, what were some big differences that you noticed between having played and won under Coach McGatlin and then, as a junior in your senior year? What was kind of some of the differences? It doesn't have to be anything good or bad, but just like philosophically or execution. I mean, playbook wise, it was pretty obvious, at least on the offensive end. But just some differences that you noticed between McGatlin and you say it's pronounced Rothschild?
Rothschild, yeah.
Oops. Gosh, I feel like an illiterate sometimes when I read these names and then someone tells me how it's actually said. But I'll let you cook here.
So first off, they're both amazing coaches. Both deserve head coaching spots. Both could. I trust both of them a ton. But obviously the playbook was flipped on its head when we brought in Rothschild. No more, like a lot more spread, less O-linemen, less running, just more like of a spread offense. But I think a little bit of a difference, I don't necessarily think it's good or bad, is just Rosh's practices were a little bit shorter. McGat would have us there like an extra 30, 45 minutes. I think it helped us win state. I think I wouldn't change anything. I think Rothschild's philosophy is great too with that because it gets us home. It keeps guys eligible. I don't think there's a problem with the way either one of them did things. I think we both had success, so it's not really a good or bad thing, but just a little bit of a difference there. Another difference is I think the fundraising a little bit. Like when Coach Rothschild got here, he was trying to immediately just get new stuff. And I think that was kind of cool. Like we got new black jerseys this year, which was kind of cool. A little bit more fundraising with Coach Rothschild. Again, not a negative or positive thing, just kind of a difference. But yeah, I don't have a lot of bad to say about either guys. They both are great coaches and they both do their job really well.
I mean, the success speaks for itself with both those guys. And, I think that the program is in great hands. And, obviously, you guys are still in that contending spot, even through a coaching change in such a short amount of time, which, I mean, is also a testament to y'all, but also a testament to Coach out there. And so, we're excited to see what he does. And, here at the pod, we love anyone who's trying to run modern football. So shout out Coach over there for continuing to do that. And, even when McGatlin was there, at least Wildcat is like exciting and different and has motion and stuff like that. So, being able to make running the ball entertaining and look a little different is also a nice change of pace. And, being able to throw when it mattered with the state championship on the line with hook and ladders. And I mean, just risks that, I don't know if I could ever bring myself to call a hook and ladder with the game on the line. I'm going to be real. I just don't know if I have that in me. So shout out to Coach McGatlin as well. And, I think it's interesting that you bring up fundraising too, because that's definitely an under talked about. I mean, it's an aspect of football, it's an aspect of high school football at least. And so, I think it's interesting. I feel like at Arapahoe, we had a different fundraiser basically like every single year. And I was like, I don't know. I couldn't really tell the difference in like our uniforms, to be completely honest. I forget what even the brand was for our uniforms. So, I mean, it's nice to get in. It's nice to be able to focus on it. But, anytime it changes up, it's just one more thing or one less thing. And, yeah, I think that, look, the philosophy, as long as it works, it doesn't really matter what it is, honestly. If it coach is more intense and you're winning games, if a coach is more relaxed and you're winning games, if you're winning games, that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. And yeah, I mean, you're playing playoff football when it matters. I guess, you have played a lot of playoff football in your career. I mean, like I said, that blackout game in Boulder was so wild. I mean, that game was probably one of the more wild games that I've ever seen, just because, I mean, the spike on fourth down was just like a crazy way for that game to end. And I mean, it was cold too, that game. So the lights going out, I don't know if they actually emit heat or anything like that, but it felt a lot colder in basically pitch black, honestly, because there wasn't even really emergency lights for a few minutes. So that game was super wild. I actually watched that game with my pops, so that was just a wild experience. But, for you, what would you say is different about playoff football here in Colorado compared to the regular season? I mean, I feel like I'm asking someone as well who's played a lot of crazy regular season games, but what do you think kind of is that small distinction?
I think just in the playoffs, the support is there from everyone, from every direction. Even shout out to Avery and Everett DeWeese. But when the lights went out, their dad actually went and fixed them. So he's the reason we got to keep playing that game.
Shout out Mr. DeWeese. All right.
Yeah, there's just support from everywhere, from the parents, from the school, the staff, the student body at Chatfield. They've supported us through thick and thin. I can't say enough about them, but just everyone in this community come playoff time is all right, let's go get to business. And it's like a team thing, but it's also just everyone wants us to do well. And I think just having all that support, just it's a little bit different. The games are louder, the stands are packed no matter who we're playing in the playoffs. Even if it's negative 2 degrees in Fairview, we still got students coming up and supporting. So that's just something different about Chatfield come playoff time, is that just everyone wants you to do well and everyone has your back. And I think that's just really cool.
Y'all do travel well. I will admit that. So, and that's special. And, I think it made for quite an exciting high school career. And, I want to just kind of hear from you. What was your recruiting journey like, and what does that next step look like for Drew Rohlman?
So I've always wanted to play college football coming into high school. It wasn't a matter of if I'm going to play college. It's a matter of where I'm going to play college. But I was young and I didn't know a lot of the steps to take when trying to get recruited. So I didn't set up my Twitter account until the end of my sophomore year. I didn't work on getting my film out there. I didn't know what it took. And I wish someone would have came in and been like, hey, if you want to play college football, this is the steps you need to take. But eventually I figured out recruiting. I started reaching out to every coach that I could find on Twitter. I started just sending out messages, as many as possible, just trying to find that perfect opportunity. Yeah, and then it was just a matter of assessing after my senior year. I took a bunch of visits to almost every RMAC school. And it was just a matter of hey, I ended up committing to Black Hills recently. And that,
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. For me, it was I feel like Black Hills is a place, it's kind of like a diamond in the rough school. They finished 4th in the RMAC this year, and I think they're really close to starting to compete with the School of Mines, the Westerns, the CSU Pueblos, who have kind of ruled the RMAC. And I think Black Hills is really starting to get to that point where, like, hey, it's time to take the next step and beat them. I think they had a great culture laid out, a great foundation, and I think that they're like ready to take that next step, and I'm excited to be a part of it. But yeah, if I was a young guy who wanted to play college football, I just wish someone would have told me, like, get Twitter first of all, set it up, get all of your stuff in your bio, pin your most recent highlights, pin your film so coaches can see it on your account. Find emails, try to find phone numbers, and just reach out over and over, like, repeatedly. Even if they don't respond at first, just keep pushing. And I think that's just, like, the only way for it to happen. Because I think, like, if you do that, you'll find a place that you can call home. And that goes out to all the recruits out there.
Yeah, you got to fight for yourself because no one else is going to just do it for free. So, I think that continuing that message and just finding those resources and those contacts is definitely the way to go. We always tell people to make a Twitter, try and, put X, Y, and Z in your bio and have a link to your huddle as your pinned tweet and stuff like that. And, building your highlights is also important the way that you do it because, we kind of look at film somewhat similarly to how our buddy who, coaches in college sports. We have a few college coaches that we talk to, but it's just like if you don't impress them immediately, they're looking at thousands of players. So, it's one of those things where it's like you got to stick out and you got to reach out and you got to find your way to make that difference. So, I think that those are all important. And, I also just want to say, you did, like you said, commit to Black Hills State recently. I want to say, what are some things that you prioritized from a school or program, and how does Black Hills fit those needs?
So for me, it was competitive football. I want to play competitive football no matter what level. I want to go and win games. I hate losing. So yeah, that was my main thing. And Black Hills, they've had 2 back-to-back winning seasons now, finishing at the top of the RMAC, which is a competitive conference. So that went into my decision. The other thing was I care a lot about graduating college with a diploma, and I think that Black Hills has a great program for me to go in and get a good education. I'm looking to go into the business field, and they have a really great business program there. So that was another thing that I took into consideration. And then the other thing was just like how the culture just felt, kind of. Because I've always been like a big believer that culture will win you games no matter what. And when I took my official visit there, I got to meet some of the players, some of the coaches, some of the recruits, and it all just felt like they were on the same page, and it all just felt like a good environment to be in. It felt like they cared about you as a person along with you as a football player, which is something that I think is really important. And yeah, I enjoyed the town. It's in Spearfish, South Dakota, so I enjoyed basically everything about it besides the cold weather. That's something that I'm gonna have to make the sacrifice. But other than that, I mean, it just really fit all my boxes.
I'm glad that you were able to find such a good fit, and we're excited to see what you do, and we just want to know, now that you're heading towards college ball, what are your outlook or goals for college ball, either on a team or individual level, and what are some things that you're going to do this off season to try and work towards those goals?
Yeah, so my goal is to be a contributor on a good team. I mean, I don't know if that's vague, but I want to win games, and I want to be a part of that team that goes and wins games. So I guess as a team goal, I hope that our guys can work on getting to the top of the RMAC conference, and I think we're close. I want to start beating the CSU Pueblos and the Westerns and the School of Mines of the RMAC. So that's kind of just like a goal, and it's like a vision I kind of see, and I just think it's close to happening, and I know if I can be a piece of that, I would love that. I know for me, just looking in a mirror, I need to put on a little bit of weight before I can play college football. I need to get a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, work on my feet some more, and I think that it started as soon as the season was over. I know I'm playing basketball right now, and I'm looking more to just like maintain my weight and maintain my skill instead of build on it right now, just because it's the basketball season and it's too much on my body. But once basketball ends, I'm going to really hit the gym hard, try to put on 10, 15 pounds of muscle, try to get my body ready, because I know college football is a different animal. And I know that the way I am right now probably is a little bit too small and too skinny. And I know that. And I'm just going to really work on building that part up first.
Sounds like a good plan of attack. Sounds like you know what to expect and how to get there. And I think that those are important things to keep in mind. And we're excited to see how that goes. And we encourage that game plan. And, just want to say, you've kind of hinted at some advice here, but what kind of advice would you give to a freshman version of yourself, whether that is recruiting, on the field, relationships, academics, or anything like that? And, if it can be broad enough for other freshmen to benefit from it, even better.
Yeah, so the first thing I would tell to my freshman self, because my freshman year was my worst year for my high school grades, I would say just it's not cool to not get good grades. Just like it's like getting good grades will open up opportunities that wouldn't have been there for you without it. So get in the classroom, go to class every day, do your homework, do your work, just focus on being a student before being an athlete, because that's important. I know my freshman year, I didn't think that much of grades. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to play college football. But I really don't think I have the opportunities that I have without getting my GPA up after my freshman year. So I would tell myself, get in the classroom, most importantly. Then I would tell myself, post everything on your Twitter. Post literally anything that a college coach might want to see. Just have it out there, because you don't know which post will catch a coach's attention. And if you just don't do anything, then you're not going to get any attention. And I wish I knew that. I wish I knew to just like get all of my information out there as soon as possible. It took me a while to kind of learn that. And it worked out okay for me, but I know that it might not always. So that's another piece of advice. Just post everything. Yeah, and then work hard. If your coach gives you a chance to come into the weight room, take that opportunity and just get better one day at a time. Just focus on what you need to do to be a better athlete, because I know it doesn't look the same for everyone. If you're an O lineman, you're not going to be doing the same stuff as if you're a corner, for example. Just like create a plan that works for you and your body, and your mind, because you know yourself the best, and just follow through with it. And just don't be lazy is the best advice I could give to myself.
Yeah, get after it. And we always will endorse being a good student here. And I mean, even when you go to college, it's student athlete. Like, if you don't have the GPA, you're not going to be on the roster. So, it's best to establish those habits early and, find what works for you. And, I think that all of that has worked for you quite well. And, I'm very grateful for the time that you've committed to this episode here. And I just want to give you some time to shout out anyone who's been special for your process here, whether that's academically, athletically, friends, family, coaches, fellow players, teachers, what have you. Just this is your time to do your shout outs, because, just like a football team, I think that, it takes a lot and a lot of people towards a common goal to make something work, whether that's winning a football game or whether that's, helping and individuals such as yourself flourish and play to the peak of your powers and just be the type of person that you are. So take as much time as you need to, get your thanks in order.
Yeah, so most importantly, I want to thank my parents through this whole journey. They would take me to camps, take me to practices before I could drive, pick me up, take me to school, do everything for me. So shout out to my parents. Next up, my 3 siblings, my 2 younger brothers and my older sister. So my older sister is playing college softball in Texas, so shout out to her. My 2 younger brothers, Ronnie, watch out for him. He's a sophomore right now. He's going to be a junior next year. And then Luke, who's an 8th grader right now. Just shout out to those guys for supporting me and honestly pushing me into being the athlete I am and person I am, because I would always compete with those guys too. So those are some really important ones for me. And next up, my friends, my teammates. Some important ones are just like these glue guys that may not get a whole lot of recognition on our team, like Colin Moat. He was the big, tall receiver. Ethan Leipold, he played DB, but didn't get a whole lot of playing time, but he was just a really important guy for us. Will Lawrence, he was a quarterback. He backed up Jake Jones for 3 years, and he decided, hey, I need to start focusing on like what's better for this team. So we made the switch to linebacker, and he played like linebacker safety, kind of a little hybrid. He played a ton for us. So really, like, that type of character is just super important for us. Avery DeWeese is another guy. He was a linebacker his whole life, but we needed D line play, so we made the switch to D line. And it's just that unselfish culture like these guys brought to our team. Goose and Dagan, obviously, I've talked about them a lot, but shout out to those guys. Shout out to Ben. Shout out to my coaches, Coach Rochel, Coach McGatlin, Coach T. Any of those guys who have ever coached me, I wouldn't be the player I am or the person I am without them. They really just like developed me into the athlete I am, and I'm so grateful for them. Yeah, and then who else? I could say to my young guys coming up, like Jude Smith. Shout out to him. Shout out to Caleb, Hunter, Logan, those guys, Cash, Jaden. I'm super excited for what you guys are gonna do next year. JR, Cooper, Jesse. Just I'm super excited for you guys, and I'm super proud of you guys. And I'm super excited to watch you guys. And just shout out to the Chatfield community and parents and families as a whole. You guys, whether I've just like been to your house one time, I just really appreciate like all the hospitality you guys have given me and all the support you guys have given me these past 4 years. Just shout out to everyone who's been involved in that.
Yeah, no, that's a special batch of players and community here, and I'm also thankful for them because they help produce you as an athlete. And also that reminds me, shout out Chatfield Fan. Got to be one of the very few fan pages for any school. We need more people like that in Colorado football everywhere, where we just have some fanatics for specific schools, because I feel like he's been at like every single game y'all have played, which is wild. And he catches some great angles and gets some great photos that we message and be like, hey, you don't mind if we use this to you? And we like to tag him and stuff. So shout him out as well from us here at the pod.
Absolutely. Chatfield Fan's been there since I was a freshman through my senior year. He's just a great guy all around. He does it just because he loves the school and loves us. He had a couple of sons go there, and I think a daughter too. So he just loves Chatfield, and I couldn't thank him enough for all the stuff he's done for me, getting videos of everything, pictures of all of us. So yeah, big shout out to Chatfield Fan.
Yeah, no, he's a dog and is unique to that community. And, it's been fun watching your career. For 3 years, we're kind of at that point as at a pod now where, the first year it's like we didn't really know anybody on a personal level like that, and got to know some of them through interviews like this. And then, the second year, those juniors that we saw last year, okay, we're kind of getting an idea for it. And as our content has evolved and grown, we've been able to know and see a lot more. And so somebody in your class, it's special to see that, the first non-COVID season that we were able to cover, and watching that all the way through. And, because the first year that we covered was that COVID year, which was just kind of a weird one. And just seeing all of y'all kind of grow up in real time, makes me feel way older than 25. Like, I don't know what the deal is with that, but, it's been a lot of fun. And, I really appreciate you coming onto the show and sharing your story, man.
Yeah, of course. Had a good time.
Sweet. And to listen to our full breakdown on Drew, once again, go listen to Playmakers Corner, episode 324. That's the top 5 class of 2024 wide receivers here. So you can get the full breakdown on his film amongst some others. And we have an entire series like that you can listen anywhere you listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube as well. Follow, like, subscribe, turn on notifications on all of those so you know when new episodes come out. Or you can follow us on social media at Playmaker Corner on Twitter/X, Playmakers Corner on Instagram, Playmakers Corner on Facebook, and also at Playmakers Corner on TikTok. Go ahead and join all those armies. And Drew, where can the people find you to get your following up here so we can try and get some NIL deals for you?
Instagram, Drew_Rohlman27. Twitter, I believe it's just Drew Rohlman. Yeah, I think that's about it. But yeah, follow me.
There you go. Make sure to follow the guys who are on the show, and make sure to follow us and stay tuned for more great content, whether that be interviews or women's flag football and other stuff that we'll have going on. But I have been your host for this episode, Kodey Stauffer, and peace.